Hello, class Info 5000. This lecture is about ethical issues and on the collection. Again, this lecture was delivered to my previous class, which was collection development class for a school media track student. So I used the book Dr. Bishop's The Collection Program in Schools. So this lecture will be mostly focusing on the ethical issues related to the collection development in school media center. But again, you can apply the knowledge and the learning from this slide to other contexts, to like systems or programs and the library system. So, and again, I didn't re-record the rest of the slides, so you'd be hearing some different course number. So hope this is fine and hope you can understand. Okay, I hope you enjoy the lecture. Okay, if you don't have time, you may just scan through the slide, which I posted as a PDF file. Okay, because it's very pretty in detail, I think. Okay, enjoy the lecture.
As a person in charge of your collection development department, or working at a media center, school media center, as a media specialist, you continually use your decision making skills, because there are so many different and various process of collection development that you need to deal with, um, uh, like issues intellectual freedom and copyright, and also recently you need to deal with how to um, provide access to the internet use. So you need to discuss when you need to deal with the use of acceptable internet use policies, or internet filtering issues. So again, in order to make good and sound ethical decisions to deal with these issues, you need to have a very detailed and sound collection policies and procedures in your library. Uh, and ethical responsibilities are expected to happen, not only for your the selection materials, but also with all other processes of collection development, like from the acquisition of the materials and equipment, and how to provide access point and access indication to your student, and how to preserve and how to maintain the collection. And when you do the circulating the materials, right, and also when you evaluate the collection, so all those process uh, uh, um, involve some sort of ethical decisions from you as a person in charge of the collection development. So again, this chapter discusses some issues and ethical responsibilities that involve decisions on the especially in the school library media center. Um, uh, and again, this isn't like a um, one-sided direction. this is a guideline. There are many opinions, reviews, and discussions about the ethical issues. So you may find some literature reviews from our journals, and also you can participate in some discussions in some of the listserv or some organizations in the library field. So you are looking at the subheadings of in this chapter 13. So we will be discussing about ethical issues in when you provide access point and when you select materials, and then we will be discussing the ethical issues when you do acquisition materials and equipment, and then the maintaining, preserving the collection, and then circulating the collection, and also try to discuss about the ethical issues when you evaluate your collection. Okay. So uh, usually there are two meanings of the access, right? I mean access to the information. One is intellectual access, and the other one is physical access. So it's easy. One is abstract, right? The other is physical access is like the actual access uh, um, to the materials. So the intellectual access is the issues addressed the patrons or student rights to hear, read, and view information, and to receive ideas, to express ideas, and to develop skills to receive, examine, analyze, synthesize, evaluate, and the use of information. Uh, the physical access refers to an environment that permit the unimpeded location and retrieval of information. So this involves like provision of adequate media center staff, access to the media center during and after regular school hours, and supplying a broad range of resources to meet students' needs in terms of learning styles and linguistic and cultural diversity, and also use of interlibrary loan and access to computerized information networks or databases. So you need to uh, 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 consider when you think about the access point, I mean access to the information to your users, you need to uh, consider these two broad uh, ideas of the access point. So one is intellectual access, and it's more likely provide for your patrons to provide more opportunities to in upper level and very abstract level. The other one is actual access to the materials, like physical access. So you need to have some commitment about the provide those access point to your patrons. So the media specialist or librarian's commitment to intellectual freedom influences the extent of intellectual access provided, and also the media specialist commitment or librarian's commitment to intellectual access and sensitivity to individual needs influence the extent of physical access provided. So commitment to intellectual and physical access affects the librarians or media specialist response to collection issues. So uh, So the intellectual freedom is a principle, right? To the almost all library collections are based, but when collections are to be utilized by children or young people, the concept of intellectual freedom becomes much more controversial. So when you do work at the media center, you need to ask, like, how does the concept of intellectual freedom apply to children and young people? And you should ask, should there be limits on student rights to read, view, and listen? If so, who has the right to impose those limits? So these are the principle or the commitment or questions that you need to have when you work at the school media center. So let's talk about the children's rights and intellectual freedom and what kind of barriers to access, especially for the young people and the children's, and what kind of uh, uh, the issues in our internet and then copyright. So let's discuss these in the later of the slides. Um, the information that you make available to students reflects the value you place in intellectual freedom and students' rights. In the United States, the First Amendment serves as the basis of intellectual rights. So, intellectual freedom is the basis of the First Amendment. Three major sections like freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and freedom of association. So these three rights have been topic of controversy and also the court cases. So in a child's intellectual rights can be viewed as legal rights and also the ethical rights. So the application of the First Amendment to children um, usually arise in the dealing with public education, particularly in court cases concerning censorship. So um, that especially the First Amendment rights are very important, especially for the children's than to adults. And One is restricting not merely the present exercise of those rights, but also further development of precisely those intellectual competencies that make the First Amendment meaningful. So we are not just discussing about the uh, First Amendments for our adult, but we are concerning about our children, the young people. There, so we have responsibilities. Let them observe those opportunities. So especially for this development, they are still a lot to develop. There still need to be grow. So the important thing is, I mean, the differences between young kids and young people to adult. We need to provide those rooms, those opportunities for young people to develop their intellectual competencies. That's the main differences between young people and adult, and that this is one of our responsibility, and this is our ethic that we need to aware of these differences, and we need to provide more opportunities for, especially for our children. So let's discuss how the First Amendment rights apply to our children. In our textbook, uh, our author provides some citations from Mothman. I didn't actually read this particular author's work, but it seems like very good when you wanna discuss, when you wanna study about especially for young people's the First Amendment rights. So one of the citations provided from author. It's this one is especially for examining the rights in the context of a censorship cases involving school libraries. The line says that schools must make choices. They cannot use every text or stock every book in the library. Selections should, however, be made in accord with educationally relevant written criteria aimed at providing as wide a variety of views and ideas as students can handle. Removers should follow carefully designed procedures in which these criteria are carefully applied and claims of harm based on alleged lack of cognitive competence are seriously scrutinized. So, uh, again, that the rights, especially in context of censorship and involving in school libraries, are more carefully handled in order to provide and in order to keep uh, to the First Amendment rights, especially for the children's. Um, Read your textbook. It has again very good citations from this Mossman's works, and you can read more interpretations of the First Amendment rights, especially applying to the children and young people. So, what intellectual rights do children have? So, as a librarians and as a media specialist, you need to respond to these questions. One is as uh, role as the protector. The other one is the advocate. So you need to protect a student that assume that adults know what's best for children, what will harm for the children, and what information they need, and how their needs should be met. So this is our assumption. So that's why we have some sort of responsibility to protect students from some harmful information or harmful materials. And the other responsibility of as a librarians or school media specialists is to help students identify, evaluate, retrieve, and use those information. So this is like advocate roles. So this is based upon assumption that uh, the perceiving children as capable of defining both their information needs and their resource needs. So you need to more carefully to consider what's different between adult and children's, and as you can see from this slide, uh, it's the rights of intellectual rights for children's that has to be more considerate uh, the thinking process that you need to have. Okay. Let's take a look what kind of barriers to access. As you can see, there are some barriers to access to provide the access point. Inequality of access, physical limitations, and physical limitations, and inadequate design resources. Um, some of examples from your textbook provide like I'm talking about the inequality of access, not only for the some gaps between the rich schools or poor schools, about the budget or technological gap, but it also gave some examples like more girls than boys are computer literate. Yeah, I didn't think about, but maybe it's true. Boys are likely like to the computer or machine, right? And it says software is designed to appeal to boys, not girls. Actually, one of our faculty candidates had on-site interview a few days ago, and the he has been researching about gender issues. So mentioned that the software, especially computer software or computers or the PCs, those are mainly uh, designed for men than a woman. Like it, as you can, as you know, like the name Apple, or those some of the names are actually uh, uh, made for men because those machines and pieces are like girls. Um, uh, I'm not sure. Have you watched the old movie Desktop, which Catherine Hepburn was the librarian, and the movie provides a very good stereotype of the librarian, and also all those new technological things that happen 50s 60s, and there are like a huge computer station was appeared in the movie, and uh, the librarians are talking the computer treat as a girl, like you do good job, and girl, like a girl, you did good job or something. They treat the machines as a car. So again, as our authors also mentioned that its software is designed to appeal to boys, not girls, and more girls than boys are computer literate, and also wealthy school districts continue to own more computers than less wealthy ones, and technological gaps that between rich and poor schools and wealthy and poor home, and like minority student may have less computer experience. Schools without media specialists may have computers but lack trained personnel who are able to assist students in effective computer use. So these are all belong to inequality of the access category, and well, to me, it was interesting to know that the computer and the PCs are treated as gold, and also it appears to more attractive to the boys. So that's why it seems like that's why boys are more good at the computer. But um, I'm not sure because nowadays it's the using the PC, using the computer is like too uh, it's very popular to everyone, not just boys. But again, these can be belong to this inequality of access category. And then let's take a look the physical limitations. These are the budgetary constraints, right? These limit available resources and including personnel, and the lack of materials and equipment replacement plan encourages media specialists to hold onto out-of-date materials and equipment. Um, Media specialists who automate escalation and cataloging systems or expand software and online services without outside funding have few funds proposed and audiovisual materials. So there are some physical um, limitations, and also there is physical limitations like it is like physical barriers to access limit the use of resources and restrict the number of people who can use them. So that include like a lack of seating and workspace and shelving behind the people's reach. That I think we already discussed in the beginning of this semester, though, and also lack of electrical outlets for equipment or an insufficient number of terminals. We will be discussing more about these provisions for people with disabilities in Chapter 15, Special Groups of Students. So these kind of barriers created by administrative decisions also include like the schedule, very rigid schedules, and limited hours for use, restrictive circulation and interlibrary loan practices, and limited student pass systems. So, and also inappropriate or missing catalog subject headings can also inhibit access to resources. So you need to be aware of all those limitations can affect that access about the information or materials in your library. And also there is the other thing, inadequate design of resources. I mean, if because we are discussing about the young kids and the children, we need to have more appropriate design for our children and young adults. Okay. Um, uh, it's like 1 or 2 decades, internet has been really widely spread, and as you can as you can see, um, we are using internet every minute, and with this internet we can uh, um, connect each other, and also you are taking online class because of the internet. So most information and the knowledge can be disseminated by the internet, and so it becomes just very popular and it becomes very important, one of the media to convey our informations. So it's very compared to our long history of the our field, the internet is relatively recent one, but it's very important to know what kind of regulation or guideline that we might need. So the internet is very different from other resources, right? Like the physical materials or the other all other format of resources, but the internet provides access to numerous sites that you need to consider as useful and appropriate question to use in your center. Um, uh, and because of the popularity of the internet, but also there are many not appropriate information also can be conveyed. So um, either you can provide access to the internet or don't provide it. So because of the possibility of accessing inappropriate sites, like especially for those that were like a sexual graphic or some the inappropriate scene, many parents and teachers and some of the groups and the restorators challenged access to the internet in media centers. So there are some of the regulations that are made, and as you can see here, um, the ARA website has provided a guideline, and also there is a rule, the Children's Internet Protection Act and Neighborhood Internet Protection Act is established effective on April 20th, 2001. You When you click this link address, it directs you the right side, and it's a very long document, um, but you need to at least once read about what kind of act it is, and also because it's important for your school media centers. um, it has schools are required to certify that they have an internet safety policy in place, and that have internet filters to block materials that might be harmful to minors. So you need to have some set for filtering those harmful sites that might be influence to your patrons, I mean the young people. So please aware of this act in order to um, mm, not in order not to provide inappropriate site for your children's. Um, if I have a time to review all this act that we can do, but just because of the time limit, and also uh, if you I'm not sure whether our program provides you a special topic with the copyright or these legal issues in our undergraduate program. We do have let me see, legal resources in the library or law in library. uh, we do have those courses in our graduate program, but I'm not sure. So hopefully you can have chance to look at this act if you are working at the school media center. Okay, the link from the ALA provides you very good resources about this act, especially for the internet use. So please take a look. Okay. And also, a school have a written internet policy or acceptable use policy that include parental consent on the use of the internet. Um, I think I have a slide about what kind of uh, the parental consent with the internet policy or acceptable user policy as an example. You should know about this importance of this document, because you need to be prepared with this document in order to uh, protect your Scrum Media Center from the law, and also in order to provide the right uh, uh, service to your patrons. So this is important that school media specialists be well acquainted with any policies, state, district, or school that related to internet access in their school libraries. I believe I have one examples of the um, internet student use agreement form. So let's take a look. Maybe the next slide. I'm sorry. So a school have a written internet policy or unacceptable use policy AUP that include the parental consent on the use of internet. Um, is this same slide that I had just before? If then, I'm sorry. So items that needs to be addressed is in an internet or acceptable user policy. In your textbook, page 167, there is one example, and also I provided one example in the next slide, but let's take a look. This has, so in the first page of this sample has like a parental consent, right? And the internet access, and you need to get some signature. I understand and will ab- abide by the school guidelines for internet and network use for using the internet. So you need to have the signature and about the agreement. The title is Student Internet Use, right? And then it provides you very detailed information, and I'm sure every school media center has this sort of the documentation. So the statement is should address about the educational use and advantage of internet access in the school, and the responsibilities of teachers, administrator, library media specialist, and student, and also the role of parents or guardians, and then the code of conduct describing how the internet should be used in the school, and description of acceptable and unacceptable use of internet, and description of network etiquette, description of consequences for violating the policy, including first offenses and loss of privilege of using the internet, and also statement regarding the need to maintain personal safety and privacy while accessing the internet. So these statements should be provided whenever before use the internet in the school system. So the signatures to be provided will be signed by the internet users, and uh, in this statement you should explain the use of the internet, what kind of privilege and the right, and what's the copyright fair use guideline. So all this information should be included the guideline for internet and network use. And then copyright, as uh, as a media specialist, you need to have responsibility to ensure that copyright rules are honored. These professional responsibilities include educating teachers and students about the fair use guidelines and copyright laws, and placing a copyright notice near copy machines and computers, and identifying copyrighted materials and monitoring the use of copyrighted materials. And when you presented the criteria by format, there was some information describing what kind of copyright regulations for various formats. And again, this fair use or copyright law is very complicated, and also there are some very many exceptions about the copyright law. So mm, uh, to be honest with you, I had attended several sessions, several conference, and also the workshop in order to get information about the copyright and to conduct right copyright the practice, but still confusing because there are so many exceptions and very different years that you need to aware of. But important thing is you need to know about these copyright materials. You need to respect the copyrighted materials, and you need to practice as information professionals. And in your textbook, there are very helpful website that provides you information about the copyright rule. And also I have here some important the links that you need to know. You need to have in a practical manner. These websites might be very helpful to practice the copyright law issues. Okay. The first thing you need to know about, you need to uh, know what kind of information resources that are available about the copyright law. The first thing you need to know is Copyright Advisory Network. This provides you a general source for copyright information as it applies to libraries. So it is sponsored in part by the American Library Association, and this is probably the best single website for library related copyright information and resources. And sorry about the some mistake of the title. Again, there is different website that might be very helpful to practice your copyright law. One is a digital copyright slider. It's a wonderful resource that helps to clarify U.S. copyright law relating to published and unpublished works. You can click the link that gives you the directory direct about the website, and also the Section 108 spinner. It's another tool useful for libraries and archives about the digital form. And also there is a fair use evaluator. This is good tool that you may refer to faculty and librarians, that it's very helpful, but it can be interpreted differently by different individuals, but still very helpful website. You need to you can also refer to copyright.gov from the U.S. Copyright Office. It's a very broad in scope and include the laws, but it doesn't provide interpretive aspect that other websites often have. So whenever you have something happen, go back to the first slide. I mean, first one that I provided in the previous slide. Okay. I hope these links are helpful for your adding to knowledge about copyright issues. Now let's discuss about what kind of ethical issues that you need to consider when you select materials. Um, because this is, I think, this is some of the most important ethical decisions made by our professional is in the selection materials. Um, all selection policies should support the principle of intellectual freedom for all the users of the libraries or media center collection. The Code of Ethics of the American Library Association addresses this topic. The second code of ethics says, we uphold the principles of intellectual freedom and resist all effort to censor library resources. So I think this guidelines tells everything, right? Although it's difficult to practice, to apply. Um, so the following topics will be discussed in the later of the slides: the selection and censorship, media specialist and personal biases, providing balance in a collection, popularity versus literary merit. So let's start. So selection and censorship. Um, uh, your textbook provides some mm, annotations about how can we differentiate with uh, the selection and censorship. As you can see, selection is by nature exclusive, right? In choosing materials to include in the collection, you need to exclude the materials not chosen. But selection and censorships can be differentiated. Selection is a process of choosing among materials, right? So the choices are related as one item is compared with others. So in choosing materials, you need to think to give each item fair consideration and make a concerted effort to suppress personal biases. In censorship, an individual or a group attempts to impose certain values on others by limiting the availability of one or more items. So, uh, by discussing about these definitions of selection and censorship, you may can see how censorship uh, creates the barriers to intellectual freedom, and how selection can promote intellectual freedom. Um, uh, the mm, as I was just checking the textbook because it provides to you the how to differentiate the selection and censorship, but we just talk about the censorship is more likely it's selection and censorship is different, right? Because the selection is uh, you can select some materials depending on your the guideline, depending on your policies, but the censorship is kind of more limited, uh, more some sort of the biases before you even select. So censorship is more likely uh, uh, the personal things, and also the more likely involved about the limitations compared to the selection. So common objections to materials include with the censorship is so these the words that I don't need to even say it, but so oftentimes people says that censors state the family values and the immaturity of student as reasons for their challenges. So it's understandable why the censors raise those issues. Um, let me see. I think some of the issues we've discussed in chapter 6 when we do the selection um, part, but try to go back the selection chapters that how policies and procedures guide this situation. Mm, the when you do select your materials, I think we will be discussing later, but try to differentiate with the selection and censorship. Again, selection is uh, just choosing the materials. The uh, the choices are related as one item to compare to with others. But the censorship is kind of impose certain values on others by limiting availability of one or more items, and including like a sexuality or this nudity or those violence. Those topics can be erased by your sensors, and they are raise issues because of the family values and the worrying about the young student. They might not dealing well about those the violences. So try to differentiate about the selection and censorships, and it, there is no ways to uh, protect, I mean, the guide well about how to select, how to not having censorship as many times to be challenged, but there is no uh, right or no right directions to direct, but there is a guideline, and there is your policy that can protect you and protect your patrons. Okay. Um, as the code of ethics of the ARA state that there are some um, concerns about the personal biases. So as you can see, there are code of ethics that you need to aware of. You need that provide some guidelines about the ethics. We do not advance private interest at the expense of library users and colleagues or our employing institutions. We distinguish between our personal convictions and professional duties, and do not allow our personal beliefs to interfere with fair representation of the aims of our institutions or the provision of access to their information resources. So these are the guidelines from our ARA Code of Ethics, and you need to practice not bias by your personal partner bias. Uh, uh, the code of ethics in ALA is in like our Bible, and you need to try to keep those guidelines, and it clearly state you need to keep from your personal biases, right? You shouldn't provide your personal private interest when you select the materials, and you shouldn't provide your personal convictions, okay? And do not allow the personal beliefs that interfere with the fair representations of the aims of your institution. Okay. Um, so some examples from the textbook says if you are from um, uh, if you had like advanced the degrees, and if you are uh, uh, too um, uh, much get into some those upper level resources that might not be appropriate for your children, for your patrons, that you shouldn't uh, get into those items because that's personal bias. Uh, and also, if you are your hobby is like a cinema, so you have like so many equipment or the movies that might not be appropriate for the not meet to your media center or your library, then you should stop, right? um, uh, so if you think that uh, your personal views may be a little bit outweighing your personal judgment, you may ask to other people's opinion, and try to ask other people's what do you think about this collection, and what do you think about the balance of your collection. So because of this, you need to have evaluation of your collection, right? Okay, so try to not to have your personal things to in it your when you select the materials. um, Again, you need to provide the balance in your collection. The uh, I think some people have different opinion about the balance in a collection, and it will be different by your collection. Um, but the goal is to maintain objectivity by including works that present different view. So try to have as many different views, different perspectives of the materials in your collection. Um, Again, there are some differences about the interpretation of this meaning, but again, you try to maintain objectivities by providing various different views in your collection. The other one is you need to consider popularity versus literary merit. I think this issues cuts across the boundaries of content, also format, or the reading level and intellectual freedom, because uh, like in order to attract your patrons, you need to have some sort of popularity, popular ones, popular magazines, or popular books, popular series, or comics that reflect the culture. But the other way, the other side, because of the budget limit, budget issues, you shouldn't get all those popular items, but because you need to consider your collection, and also you need to meet your mission of the library, the visions, right? So you need to balance of those things. It's like ongoing issues in your libraries and library centers, and you should ask many questions that if you allowed to have, if you wanted to have all those series books that popular by your patron, that how about the graphic novels, and how about the nonfiction present in comic books form? So it's well, if your library has good fund, good money, then it shouldn't be problem. I guess you can do good quality of materials that uh, that meet your uh, collection um, policy or the mission or vision of your library, but also because you can also buy good materials of the popular items. But if you don't have those funds, you need to consider which way or how to balance those items to consider both sides, right? So let's discuss about what kind of ethical issues you need to consider when you do the acquisition process for materials and equipment. Um, well, you should consider the purchase should be made for appropriate reasons, and because there are more than one vendors or jobbers, when you deal with those jobbers and vendors, you shouldn't be biased from their treat or their like mm, some occasions they may provide you like free invitations or free materials, but don't be biased with this. But you need to have appropriate reasons why you chose the vendors or jobs, and also you need to have ethical responsibilities to the business with whom you deal with. You need to keep the agreement, you need to keep the due date, or you need to keep your responsibilities based upon the agreement you had with the vendors or jobbers. And also, if your school is involved in research sharing, and you obtain the materials from, I mean, through the interlibrary loan, you need to know what kind of laws or regulations that you need to deal with. You need to check the National Commission on New Technological Use of Copyrighted Works. From this link, you can get the information how long and how many copies, and because interlibrary loan is very vulnerable place to against the law, copyright law. So this is a regulation that you need to keep if you are participating through the resource sharing network. Okay. Okay, let's discuss about what kind of ethical issue you need to consider when you are circulating your collection. The first thing is confidentiality. for your patrons. This is the major ethical concern in the area of circulation. I'm sorry for the typo. You need to protect the privacy of students and teachers. You shouldn't reveal uh, uh, who has which student have uh, what kind of uh, interested topics or subject, or you shouldn't be line up uh, the interested or checked in, checked out books by each different student or teacher, because that's some of their privacy. You shouldn't be revealed. Okay. And from the ALA Code of Ethics, we protect each library user's right to privacy and confidentiality with respect to information sought or received and resources consulted, borrowed, acquired, or transmitted. So you shouldn't uh, um, use or reveal. You can use some data set that might be helpful for your evaluation, but you shouldn't reveal this individual data. What kind of items they borrowed, what kind of item they transmitted, or what kind of what's their address, what's their telephone number, or what kind of item they checked out. The U.S. Patriot Act was established by government that the make the government agent can access to the library records without permission. But so because of the 2001, the 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 tragic instant, the U.S. Patriot Act was established, and you should cooperate with your agent, because it's the government think that it might be a good source to track those the dangerous people. So you should know about this U.S. Patriot Act, and how you can cooperate with the government. But there are some issues, but just you should know about this act. Okay. Um, so uh, I didn't uh, go over about what kind of ethical issues in evaluating the collection, and the when you do the professional responsibilities. But it's because it's the same that because the ethical decision making also needs to be established when you evaluate the collection. And it, it the we also discussed when we covered the evaluation of the collection in chapter 12. And the you should uh, you shouldn't have the biased the mm, perspective when you do evaluate. And also as professionals, you should have responsibilities for intellectual freedom and access extend to collection activities other than selection. So when you involve those professional associations or professional duty, and you need to have responsibilities when including like obtaining funding, and that will support and strengthen your collection. And again, this may mean presenting facts about the collection, noting its condition, and also anticipating replacement cost. And so all those things are uh, your responsibilities, and also you need to have your ethical issues when you do practice your professional responsibilities. Okay. So the ethical situations and potential dilemmas of collection development are inescapable, and you need to be prepared to face these dilemmas, and whether they involve challenged materials in the library, or equality of access to need information, or protecting the intellectual freedom rights of your patrons. So the every library, or every librarian or school media specialist should be familiar with the code of ethics um, of the American Library Association, and be ready to support the principles on which librarianship is based. And it's important to have written policies and procedures for any potential collection development issues that might be encountered. You need to consider possible scenarios that have been provided in our textbook. You might be encountered those instant when you walk at the library, and the again we went over very briefly, but each section, there are many discussions that you may have. But important thing is you need to practice. You need to have ethical consideration when you do your collection development, and you should be aware of the code of ethics of the ARA, which is a guideline to practice your profession. Okay, I hope I covered important concepts, important the notions of ethical issues in our profession. Okay, let me see. We don't have many chapters left to complete this our textbook. Next week we will be discussing the curriculum, because we are focusing on Skill Media Center, and we will be discussing about the special groups of students, which are very important topics, and also we will be taking a look of fiscal issues relating to the collection, because it's you need to deal with the budget issues, and also we will be briefly discuss in our last chapter opening, moving, or closing the collection. Okay, then we will be finishing our textbook. Wow. Okay, thanks for listening this lecture note, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye bye.